Parker Schnabel built a fortress in the wild. It is not a fortress of stone. It is a fortress of steel. It is a fortress of light. Giant excavators tear at the earth. Metal teeth rip through frozen ground. Wash plants roar by day. Wash plants roar by night. Machines vibrate with water and rock. A camp like a modern city sits in an ancient landscape. A bubble of high technology in empty wilderness. Floodlights cut through the darkness. An island of industry glows. This operation is precise. It is efficient. It is immensely profitable. A testament to what money and machinery can conquer in the cold. Beyond the floodlights, the land is different. Dark. Silent. The wilderness stretches hundreds of miles. Rough tracks and abandoned dreams. Ground, mud. Ground, rock. Ground, permafrost. This place does not forgive mistakes. Survival is a daily struggle, not a guarantee. Then came the leak. A single crack in the wall of operational security. It wasn't a physical breach, not at first. It was a breach of information, far more insidious and impossible to contain. It was a single number, buried deep within a confidential production report. A document never meant for public eyes, detailing operational forecasts and yields, somehow found its way into the open. Perhaps a misplaced document, a careless word over a satellite phone, or a deliberate act of sabotage. The origin was a mystery, but the outcome was immediate and irreversible. The number was $80 million. It represented the estimated gross haul from a single spectacular mining season. A projection so audacious it bordered on fantasy. The figure was staggering, not just a season's profit, but a generational fortune pulled from the earth. It was the kind of number that makes a legend, but also the kind that paints a target. Before the leak, Parker's mine was one of many operations in the vast wilderness. People knew he was doing well, but well is a relative term in the goldfields. Once the number was out, it spread like wildfire through dry brush. It traveled through the isolated network of small towns, spoken in quiet bars and over crackling radios. It became the topic of every conversation, from the supply depots to the most remote claims. The number was repeated, embellished, and analyzed. It became a fact, then a legend, then a motive. The leak was the turning point. It transformed the perception of the mine overnight, altering the very fabric of the local ecosystem. It was no longer just a place of hard work and calculated risk. It became a treasure chest, publicly declared. The dirt and rock were no longer just pay dirt. They were now pieces of an $80 million prize, waiting to be claimed. The air grew tense. Casual watchfulness turned sharp, professional. Every shadow held a potential threat. Every unfamiliar vehicle a possible scout. The leak had lit a fuse, and the length of that fuse was unknown. Gold fever is a powerful force. But this was different. This wasn't the abstract hope of striking it rich. It was the concrete, intoxicating knowledge of a massive, proven hoard. It shifted the calculus from one of discovery to one of acquisition. The question was no longer, is the gold there? But how do we get it? In the remote wilderness, the abstract threat of theft doesn't arrive with a formal declaration of war. It materializes slowly, then all at once. For an operation of this scale, the threats were no longer a distant possibility discussed in planning meetings. They became real. They became visible. A shadow war had begun, fought not in trenches, but along the blurred edges of a multi-million-dollar claim. The first signs were the illegal digs. These weren't sophisticated heists. They were opportunistic probes. Small, unsanctioned operations would appear right on the edge of the claim, run by individuals or small groups who knew the land and the law. They were the lowest tier of threat. The opportunists, gambling that a few yards of dirt might yield a life-changing score. These prospectors pushed their luck, working quickly and quietly, often under the cover of darkness. They dug test holes just over the boundary line, their headlamps bobbing in the vast emptiness. They were hoping to tap the same rich vein of pay dirt that the main operation was chasing, a geological bleed-over that could make them rich. But these were more than just rogue digs. They were probing attacks, a way to test the security posture, Every shovel in the ground was a question directed at the operations command center. How closely are you watching? How fast is your response time? Are your boundaries truly secure, or just lines on a map? Then came the tampering, a deliberate escalation. Boundary markers, the physical manifestation of legal ownership, started to move. Some were pulled up entirely, erased from the landscape. Others were subtly shifted by a few feet. A quiet, insidious act designed to blur the lines of ownership and create legal chaos. This was a calculated attempt to provoke a dispute, to draw the operation into a costly and time-consuming legal battle over centimeters of dirt. At night, the watchers returned. Headlamps hung like fireflies in the tree line, not digging, but observing, studying. This signaled the arrival of a more organized adversary. Covert reconnaissance began mapping patrol routes, shift changes, and camera placements, searching for blind spots in the digital fortress. They were looking for patterns, for weaknesses, for the single gap in the armor. These were not hobby drones flown for scenic shots. They were tactical tools used to build a comprehensive intelligence picture of the entire site, mapping the operations workflow, tracking the movement of personnel and equipment, and, most critically, identifying where the gold concentrate was stored before transport. This was a new level of intelligence gathering. Organized, patient, disciplined. This wasn't about luck anymore. It was about planning. The psychological campaign intensified. It was a war of nerves fought with small acts of sabotage. A cut fuel line on a dozer, a tampered hydraulic system on an excavator, a strange vehicle parked for hours on a service road. Each incident, small and deniable on its own, but together, they formed a siege. The constant pressure began to wear on the crew. They felt watched. The vast, wide-open country that once symbolized freedom now began to feel hostile and confining. Every shadow held a potential threat. There were unseen enemies in the timber, their intentions unknown. Every night brought a new, gnawing unease. The perimeter wasn't just a line, it was the front line. The operation responded by hardening the target, bathing the site in light. But the bright lights only pushed back the physical darkness. They couldn't extinguish the fear. On the frozen tundra, the tension on the claim lines became a physical reality. What was once a simple marker of territory, a line on a map, was now a battlefront. The boundary between legal and illegal, between Parker's operation and the desperate opportunists drawn to his success, was no longer just a line in the dirt. It was a tripwire. An excavator swings a little too far, its steel bucket crossing the invisible line by mere inches. A simple mistake, a miscalculation by an operator working a 12-hour shift? Or was it a deliberate provocation? A test of nerve, a calculated probe to see how far they could push before Parker's crew pushed back. Shouting matches erupted in the cold, thin air. These weren't friendly disagreements over a shared boundary. This was raw aggression, fueled by the magnetic pull of the $80 million prize. Every accusation, every threat, was a negotiation for dominance. The machines themselves became weapons. Multi-ton excavators and dozers were used for psychological warfare. These were tactics of intimidation, designed to slow Parker's operation, to cost him time and money by forcing his crews to stop, reassess, and verify the lines again and again. In the gold fields, time is everything. Every down hour, every stalled machine, bleeds production. It's a loss that can never be recovered. But the threats weren't just external. With so much wealth flowing, the temptation for internal theft grew. Concentrates could be siphoned off at multiple points in the process. A small bag of black sand, easily concealed, could be worth thousands. The gold room, already secure, became a fortress within a fortress. Access was tightened, protocols were doubled, and every gram was accounted for with obsessive precision. But a vast operation has seams. Miles of perimeter, dozens of workers, and the constant movement of machinery create vulnerabilities that are impossible to completely eliminate. So patrols increased. Guards walked the perimeter day and night, their eyes combing the dark tree line for any sign of movement, any flicker of a headlamp where one shouldn't be. Trust between neighbors, a vital currency in the isolated north, evaporated. Every approaching vehicle was a potential threat. Every conversation was laced with suspicion. This was a low-grade conflict. A war fought in inches and ounces, in glares and engine revs. Each skirmish, no matter how small, was a message. To Parker's team, the message from the outside was clear. You are not safe. Your wealth makes you a target. We know what you have, and we are close. The reply from the wild was a silent, persistent presence. We are watching. And from inside the fortress, the response was equally resolute. We will defend what is ours. The land itself, scarred by the hunt for gold, seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for the first real crack in the fragile peace, waiting to see who would make the next move in this undeclared war. This is more than a fight over gold. It is a clash of two different worlds, two opposing philosophies. On one side stands Parker Schnabel's operation, modern, capitalized, legal, built on technology and the rule of law, a structured system. Buy the best, hire the best, use science. For them, mining is a high-stakes business that must be run with precision and protected by rules. On the other side, small-time miners and drifters, men on the fringes, living an older, more romantic and more desperate vision. They believe the land is wild, its riches for the taking. Permits look like tools of the wealthy to lock them out. The legal operation calls them thieves. They answer, we invest millions, we own rights, we earn the shield of law. Without order, the industry collapses, say the builders. The lawless see invaders who strip the land. To some, taking a bit from an 80-mailer haul is justice, leveling the field. This deep division fuels the conflict. The gold is just the trigger. Parker Schnabel's $80 million gold haul was meant to solidify his legacy. Instead, it may trigger a dangerous conflict. By exposing his wealth, it has created a territorial war between legitimate mining and lawless desperation. The future is uncertain. The 80 million figure will not be forgotten. Parker can build higher fences, hire more guards, negotiate, work with the law to de-escalate, or pressure could mount. New determined crews arrive. Small skirmishes ignite into larger conflict. A massive season reshapes the region, changing how people see the land, their neighbors, and themselves. It can inspire innovation and hard work, or breed jealousy, fear, and greed. For now, the fortress lights burn. The machines roar. The gold still comes. The watchers remain. The guards still walk. The prize sits between two forces, a beacon of wealth and a target. The gold does not choose a side. Men do. They choose to live by rules or by force, to build or to break, to seek peace or invite war. The $80 million season has drawn a line in the frozen dirt. The cold air is still. The fuse is burning. Please subscribe to our channel History Documentary Hub for more insightful videos and intriguing content.